morning, Lasallians. Good morning, partner.
Good morning din, partner. And also, we would like to greet everyone and all the Lasallian partners out there a lovely Wednesday morning.
I am Dale Fernan Castillo,
And I am Ilyana Kagibal. And we
and
are
we are
your
your
hosts for
hosts for
today.
today. Partner, let's make this morning not just wonderful, but also a day full of learning, knowledge, and information.
Yes, that's right. We have anticipated long enough for this day to come.
So, what are we waiting for, partner? The long wait is finally over.
Lasallians, we welcome you all to the Border-Free
Borderfree
Education
Education
Orientation for
Orientation
College
for college
Students.
students. Okay, and to formally start this orientation, here are some of the reminders that we need to follow. Use proper language to be mindful of the words that you will use in the comment section. Only questions related to the topic discussed will be answered, and show respect all the time.
Now, let us all feel the presence of Almighty God as we offer Him a song of praise to be followed by our Philippine National Anthem.
Under your wings, cover me within your mighty hands. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood, and I will be still and know you are God. For rest my soul in Christ alone. Know His love in quietness and trust. When the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are king over the flood, and I will be still and know you are God. I will be still and know you are God. I will be still and know you are God.
As a sign of respect, let us all stand straight and put our right hand on our left chest as we sing our national anthem.
Again, we would like to welcome you to our Border Free Education Orientation for College Students.
And now we have Dr. Isel Torino, the Vice Chancellor for Academics, to orient and enlighten us about the Border Free Education College Edition. Good morning, Dr. Rino.
Good morning, Yana. Good morning, Dale. Thank you for the introduction. Good morning to our dear beloved college students. This is again a very lovely morning, and I'm happy to be here with you in this conversation as we discuss with our topics for today, along with our orientation for the Border Free Education. So let me actually share with you my screen. Okay. Can we now start? Okay, thank you. So, yes, for this particular few weeks before, we've been very active in terms of our conversation with different stakeholders relative to our launching of our border-free education. So, we've been quite busy since March relative to the preparation for this coming school year. So, my presentation for this morning is to basically engage you in a conversation relative to the Border-Free Classroom is basically a component of our border-free education. Okay, so my talking points will basically include some preliminaries and of course the highlights which are on the roles of stakeholders, especially of course the classroom setup that we have for our border-free classroom. Okay, so it's not actually simply that this year that we started our online learning. So 4 years before, we've started with our digital campus initiatives. And then by 2017, we have already identified that we are on ready for our online. So remember the 2-1, the 1 hour, meaning to say that is simply relegated for the online component of every 3 hour lecture subject for the college. Then 2018, if you would actually remember, we have what we call the Wednesday online classes. Okay. And then 2019, the latter part of which we're actually engaged with what we call the home-based online learning with the eruption of our volcano. Okay, now before we actually had the 2020 school year, there were some preparations that were actually, okay. Sorry for that. Do you now see the screen now, Dale? Yana? Okay, thank you. So for the year 2020, if you would notice, it was, if you again remember our historical timeline, we have been given with our community quarantine, March 15, and then readily we have realized that this is not actually a short-term scenario. That is why we have prepared and came up with a general task force as a mandate from the brother president. It was April 17 when the general task force was created. And on that, we are working towards the main goal of full online classes or to start with August 24. And there are three components of the general task force composed of academics, support services, and the mission, all gearing towards creating a learning continuity plan. For the learning continuity plan timeline, we have for the academics a 3-year timeline, and we are already on our phase 3. And that is that for the phase 3, we are embarking on massive orientation, conversation, monitoring, and feedback from our stakeholders. Of course, also readying ourselves for the next semester. Now, there are actually three considerations why we have embarked with our border-free education. Number one is, of course, the priority concern on safety and well-being. And that is actually a result of the survey from our stakeholders as well. Access to quality education, not solely mainly because of our distance learning, but we would like to actually reach out to the marginalized sector so that we also offer our online opportunity in terms of education. And lastly, of course, in terms of ownership of the learning experience, and that is by the student to actually be engaged with their own self-paced, self-directed learning. And that is why we came up with the Border-Free Education, with components on classroom, campus, and community. So it's not only focused toward the completion of the academic requirements, but basically we are reinterpreting the digital space and of course focusing on the human or values formation, thereby creating what we call the border-free learning experience roadmap. For the framework that we have for every initiative or project that we have under academics, we follow the education transformation process framework. So this is basically the interplay of enabling people, using new platforms, and revisiting policies. And that simply says that all projects under academics should follow all of this um, uh, factors to be considered so that we are always directed towards the delivery of an equitable, just, inclusive, and sustainable education for all. So aside from our internal preparation, we also have to conform with regulatory bodies specific to our intent to go full online starting this school year. So we have CHED, TESDA, and DepEd to conform with, and we have already conversed with them and we have submitted all supporting documents relative to all their readiness checklist for our online modality. And aside from that, we also had to contain, of course, our accreditation status from PAASCU. And then again, for this school year, we were given accreditation extension for our level 3 programs, specifically that of the integrated school, for programs under the College of Business, Economics, Accountancy, and Management, and of course, from the College of Education, Arts, and Sciences. And then last June 2020, we were also awarded with a level 3 status for our hospitality and tourism management programs. Now, when we launched our Border-Free Education, that was June 3, 2020, together with our Border-Free Learning Management System powered by Canvas with hashtag Empowered Learning Anytime, Anywhere. So this is the culmination of the project work that we've had for the General Task Force, and that is the launching of our modality for the coming school year. Now, since Border-Free Classroom is a component of the Border-Free Education, so let me actually clarify some concepts or key concepts with this. So when we define a classroom for border-free, that is basically where learners are guided to become actively engaged in the design of their learning experiences. So in other words, it is a classroom where students are actually empowered to take greater ownership of their learning. So when you're going to condense this particular statements together, you have what we call empowered learning. So keywords under empowered learning that you're most familiar with right now are on self-directed, meaning to say you are now taking initiative in your own learning journey at your own rate. And that is what we call self-paced. So in this matrix, it now identifies the role or the roles of the teachers, students, and parents into the learning journey. So we have varying roles for different grade or year levels in this matrix. So let me just highlight with you that of the college. So for the college, the teachers are your consultant or delegators. The students are the main or the center of the learning journey, wherein you are not too dependent to your teachers, but you are self-assured to take self-directed learning. And then for the parents, simply to monitor you, or perhaps with little or no engagement at all. So for the highlights of our Border-Free Classroom in terms of curricula, pedagogy, and assessment, when we talk of curriculum, that basically is the roster of courses that you had. So for the courses that you have for the college, these are mostly, and of course, online courses with our following CHED prescribed minimum competencies. So we're in for each particular program, there are varying number of academic courses with age-appropriate essential life, vocation, or social skills integrated thereon. And if you would notice on your class size or groupings, you have an average of 35 to 55 students in a class or in a group. So under pedagogy are what we call instructional practices, or in layman's term, you call this how the teacher animate the content or the subject matter for the college. Teacher only acts as a consultant. But definitely, the pedagogy is not only for the teacher, it's also for the learner, because you are at the center of the learning journey. So you now have what we call self-directed learning, wherein your parents or perhaps your guardian has little or no engagement at all. If you would notice again, based on the schedule that you've had, you have approximately 4 structured online sessions per month, wherein you're given approximately 20 hours per week consultation with the teachers. So aside from that, you're given at least an hour per week per subject, pre-scheduled time allotment for all of your courses. So for assessment, if you would notice during with your orientation with your respective or concerned subject teachers, there are 3 summative assessments per semester, per subject, or per course, with prior 2 to 3 formative assessments for each summative assessment. So again, when we talk of summative assessment, these are what we call the graded scores that will somehow be computed to be part of the final score or final grade for the subject. And for the formative assessments, these are what we call unrecorded but graded as well, just to actually give you or give a feedback relative to the performance that you have prior to taking the summative assessment. Okay. Aside from this, we are also focusing with the intentional curriculum, which encompasses, if you would notice on your homepage, the 6 priorities for the social innovation fundamentals. So we have global issues, human-centered design, social entrepreneurship, stakeholder management, sustainability, and social impact assessment. All of these are somehow integrated one way or the other in your own respective learning modules. And of course, if you would notice, there are also some integration of social skills, essential skills as well, with badges along the way. So those are the main components of our Border-Free Classroom. And I thank you for listening. And I'm going to open again later on for our conversation, for clarifications, if you should have any. But then again, I'd like again to take this opportunity to thank the SG officers for initiating this activity. And hopefully, we could have more of this in the coming months or so, or weeks perhaps, so that we remain engaged, seen, and connected towards our various deliverables for the institution in terms of the border-free classroom. So with this, I'd like to thank all of you, and I'll see you around virtually and later for the question and answer. So thank you very much. Good morning again, everyone.
Ayan, we have been enlightened of what the border-free classroom looks like. And for that well-explained presentation, I would like to thank Dr. Torino.
Yes, sobrang-sobrang enlightened tayo kung ano ba talaga ang border-free education. And as a Lasallian, I can say that I am not confused anymore about this new academic setup we have right now.
Not just that, partner, we also have Mr. Ruben Rubis from the Academic Services and Institutional Registrar to show us the things that we should look forward to with this academic year.
Good morning. Good morning, Yana. Good morning, Dale. Good morning,
Morning,
Good
sir.
morning,
everyone.
sir.
Yeah. So I'll be presenting to you the college academic calendar for the school year 2020-2021. Okay, our classes actually started last August 24, and our lock date or the expected date for you to submit all your requirements will be on January 8, 2021. So the completion of grades will be on January 22, and the fetching date, when you say fetching date, that will be the time that the grades in the Canvas LMS will be migrated to our student information system. That will be on January 25, and the online viewing of grades will be on January 26. That will be via the MyD Campus portal. So our enrollment schedule for the second semester actually is on January 27 to February 5, 2021. And we will give you the details of this enrollment schedule via your Canvas account. So just an advance information, our second semester will start on February 8 and will end on June 18 for the second semester. And for the term break, we have July 12 to August 10. That's all. Thank you.
Ayan, that gives me really an exciting moment ngayon at it's really sobrang inilulook forward na natin kung ano yung mangyayari for this academic year. Thank you very much, Sir Rubis.
Ayan, partner, that's true. Kasi with all the activities and all the important dates that we should look forward to, every day it makes me want to look at my calendar talaga.
Ayan, tama. And moving forward, we have Dr. Edgar Alan Castro, the Associate Vice Chancellor for Academics, to discuss the assessment and grading system.
Good morning. This morning, I would like to share with you the academic policies for assessments and the grading system for the colleges. And I would like to start with presenting to you the content of this presentation. I will be covering the policy background for the grading system, the academic policy for assessments, and the academic policy for grading. For the grading system was developed based on the approach that we have in our border-free education, which is the self-paced and self-directed learning. This allows students to learn at their own pace and make choices about the sequence and focus of their learning. This particular approach is coupled with a competency proficiency-based learning. This is a strategy which refers to systems of instruction, assessment, grading, and academic reporting that are based on students demonstrating what they have learned and that they have learned the knowledge and skills they are expected to learn as they progress through education on a self-paced, self-directed mode. The competency-based grading shall promote flexibility, reflection, and responsibility among students, and it will be observed based on the demonstration of expected competencies or grades and provision of retake opportunities for assessments. For the assessment is the process of gathering and collecting information from multiple sources in order to have an understanding of what students know. This is a parameter whether the student understood what they have learned and what can they do with the knowledge as a result of their educational experiences. The assessment falls in three types: the zeros in the practice, formative assessment, and the summative assessment. Your teachers will tell you more about this. For the formative assessments, there will be 2 to 3 formative assessments before a summative assessment. There will be unlimited attempts for each formative assessment, and you need to score 70% or better to unlock succeeding modules or learning activities and or take the summative assessment. However, this will not count to the final grade. For the summative assessment, there will be 2 to 3 summative assessments in the whole semester. There will be 3 attempts for each, and the student needs to score 60% or higher on all summative assessments. Average of all attempts for each summative assessment will count for the final grade, and students need to get at least 60% to pass the course. However, faculty shall exhaust all efforts to guide and provide intervention for academically challenged students. This is how we will implement the policy, and this is also how it will be. This will be how implemented based on the flowchart. This will all be available for your guidance. For the timing of assessment, the 3 summative assessment will be spaced out over a 16-week period to allow enough time to take and retake the assessments. Prescribed end period date is date where students are encouraged to have taken summative assessments and or have used all three attempts or at least have taken the first attempt. Again, this is not the due date, but this is an ideal date to take the assessments in order for us to really observe the self-paced of directed learning. Faculty shall set prescribed end periods for each summative assessment and post these dates in the homepage under assessments. A notice for the prescribed end period shall be set 2 weeks before to remind the students. For the lock period and the lock date, the lock period is the weeks that precede the last summative prescribed end period and the weeks before the lock date. This is for the students to make up on all the summative assessments that they missed before or the attempts that they have missed before in order to improve their grades. Lock date is the date where all assessments are locked and when summative scores are summed up as basis for the final grade. The summative assessment scores are final at the end of the semester, week 20, and will be fetched by the middleware for transportation and assignment of grade point equivalent and letter grade. All concerns about the summative test and its results will be addressed by weeks 19 and 20. For the grading policy, for the grading system, the student final course grade and its equivalent letter grade shall be based on the sum of scores of all summative assessments transmitted by 60%. And as I have said earlier, the faculty prepares 2 to 3 summative assessments each semester. The faculty determines how much each assessment is worth in terms of points score, where the teacher decides on the allocation of points score for each summative assessment that should be total to 100. The total summative assessment score at the end of week 20 is final and shall be the basis of the final course grade and letter grade. The middleware transmits the total score of all summative assessments on a 60% base and assigns grade point equivalent and letter grade. And this is how it will look like. So you have the point averages, the point ranges, sorry, the grade ranges, the grade point equivalent, and the grade equivalent. Attendance will not be checked. However, for the purpose of monitoring, if a student has not taken at least one formative assessment by week 7, over the 20-week period, faculty is required to report the student to the guidance office for counseling. A report on student status from the guidance office shall be shared with the faculty for appropriate intervention. If there will be no response or action from the student by week 9, the student will be given the option to drop the course. Otherwise, policy for failure due to absences shall be observed. By the end of week 10, and no official dropping is processed, the student will automatically receive a grade of 0 after a formal communication with the student and his or her parents or guardian has been set. Dropping of courses. A student who officially drops from a course at week 9 will receive a remark of drop for the course. No tuition refunds for drop courses. A student may apply for cancellation of enrollment within 2 weeks from the start of class. Enrollment transaction for the courses will be deleted, and the policy on tuition refunds for cancellation of enrollment will be subject to relevant school policies. For the assessments, as I've said earlier, students are encouraged to observe the suggested end periods for each summative assessment. All 3 summative assessments should have been taken by week 16 and will be locked by the end of week 18. Final grades computed at the end of week 18, the lock date. Students who failed to take the last summative assessment will be given chance to take the missed summative assessments during weeks 19 to 20, provided that the reason for missing the summative assessment is any of the following circumstances: death in the family, confinement in the hospital, activity sanctioned by the school, emergencies and other reasons, and connectivity or gadget device issues. Failure to take the last summative assessment during weeks 19 to 20 will mean a grade of 0 for that summative assessment for reasons not under the stated circumstances. Upon verification of reason under special circumstances listed for failure to complete the summative assessments, the faculty shall moderate the student account to unlock the assessment. However, still, if the student fails to complete the summative assessment during weeks 19-20 due to prolonged circumstances mentioned above, will receive a grade of incomplete and shall be given more time to comply. The provision for academic dishonesty will follow under the BLMP and will be observed At this time, we will be observing the existing policy of academic dishonesty. For the honor system, we will observe the current policies on semestral and Latin honors. So that's it, everybody. Thank you very much for listening, and I will be happy to answer your questions later. Thank you very much.
Ayan, thank you very much, Dr. Castro. It was a well-explained presentation. Now, partner, alam ko na kung anong assessment that I should focus on.
Oo nga. At ikaw ba, partner, nakailang modules ka na ba this
Partner, I'm
Borderfree
going to my
Education?
second module pa lang this week. Ikaw ba, partner?
Oo nga. Ganun din, second module. Okay? So anyway, you know what, partner? Ganun din yung exactly na sinabi ng mga professors natin sa atin during our orientations per class. And you know what, partner? After all the explanations and discussions happened, I realized that we have been really into adjustment and changes as we enter in this academic year because of the
Yes,
pandemic.
partner, who would have thought that this year we'll be experiencing this border-free education, di ba?
Right, partner? And now that we are enlightened, I think our co-students still have many questions with regards to all the matters being discussed.
Papatagalin pa ba natin to? Lasalians, let's go to the question and answer portion of this orientation. You can now comment your questions on the chat box.
Yes. We will be accompanied by our VCA and other speakers today. Ayan, kaya go Lasalians, kung meron pa kayong confusions and other things na gustong masettle, just comment down below. Yan, na meron ata tayong first question dito.
Yes, partner. The first question, I think it's applicable to all our speakers po, especially po kay Dr. Castro.
Morning
Ayan po. Good morning po. The first question po is, how will our grades be computed to qualify for the Dean's List po for this year?
We will follow the same policies observed before for the semester and Latin honor. So I guess you just have to somehow go back to your handbook and really check how grades will be computed and how you will qualify for the semester and Latin honors.
Ayan. Talaga nga naman. Partner, meron pa akong nakikitang isa pang question.
Oo nga eh. Sige, basahin ko partner ha. With regards po sa ating current academic year din po, meron pong nag-ask ng question, how will the transmutation of grades be conducted? Will it have a higher standard compared before po?
Okay.
Okay. So when we talk of the transmutation, basically it's explained by Dr. EA a while ago. If you would notice, we are only basing the grades that we have for the recorded grades from our summative assessments. So basically, whether that is objective type or authentic assessment, it's basically the sum of all of the scores that you have for the summative assessments. Of course, you're given 3 attempts for each summative assessment to actually meet the criteria of 60% for you to get a passing grade. So for the transmutation, it is still as the usual transmutation that we have. It's just that we only do the transmutation at the end of the semester. And that is once. Before, when you in our old practice, if you would actually recall, we have the midterm grade and you have your finals grade. But now that will be simply the last grade that will be transmuted.
Okay
So
po. Thank
you'll
you
go
very
to
much.
see all your grades on the grade book in Canvas. That's it.
So parang magkakaroon na rin po ng overview or glimpse on kung ano po yung makukuhang grade for the semester po. Tama po?
Right.
Ayan, partner, I think tinitake in pa ng ating fellow Lasalians yung mga na-discuss kanina. So, let's wait for other questions po.
Yes. Hanap tayo ng questions. Okay po, another question po, regarding our summative and formative assessments.
Yes.
So with regards to the number daw po ng ating summative and formative assessments, can the professors give an exceeding formative and summative assessments within a module po?
Well, some well, that
In a
mean
module?
adding more formative assessments in the module. I guess well, the understanding is that we have already done course. So that means there's already a fixed number of formative assessment, summative assessments before the classes start. So I guess there could possibly additional, but it's not really the way it was designed before. Siguro it would be in the form of enhancements and also in a form of really adding some more drills and practices for them to really make sure that the students develop the competencies that they are meant to develop.
Right. And if I may add to that, Dr. EA, if you would notice, we have an average of 6 modules per course in the colleges, and that if we're going to have 3 summative assessments, so that means to say, not necessarily you're going to have the assessment or the summative assessment at the end of each module. So perhaps on the average, that's basically 2 modules before the one summative assessment, more or less.
Thank you very much po for answering that question. And since po everything is online now, do you have, can you please explain pa po kung ano po yung, are there any online consultation rules po regarding this year?
Okay. So for the consultation rules, if you would notice, based on your certificate of registration, you are given an hour per subject for the uh, pre-scheduled consultation with your subject or subject teachers. But again, on top of that, there are actually, if you would see on the homepage per section or for your course, each course, you'll also be seeing other consultation hours designated by the subject teachers also. So in a week, basically for the faculty, we have asked them that they shall be engaging with student consultations on an average of 25 hours a week. So that means say they are readily on the platform for whatever consultation based on their availability of the students, of course, and of course if there are Wi-Fi connection um, concerns. So that means to say, you have to actually always connect with your teachers so that they'll know when they will be able to connect with you on your free time whatsoever. And of course, whatever platform that shall be used for those kind of conversations.
Okay, thank you po. Another question po about sa summative po. 'Di ba doon lang po kukuhanin ng grades? Yes, unlimited time siya, pero what if mawalan daw po ng power at internet bigla? 'Di ba mako-consider na siya as first attempt? If ever na-graded na yung first attempt at mababa yung score, pwede po bang maulit yung isang attempt?
So
Yes.
you're talking,
Yes.
sige, Doc.
Yes. So for summative assessments, you are given 3 attempts. So if there's any problem on the first attempt, then you can take the same summative assessment so that you can somehow make up for the lost opportunity or not so good performance on the first attempt.
Okay
You
po.
have 3 attempts
However,
for each summative.
yes po. However po, a follow-up question with regards to summative assessment po. Our summative assessments are the grades po are averaged, right po?
Yes.
Right.
So ang parang concern po nung nag-raise po ng question natin is pwede pa po bang maging invalid yung first attempt niya kasi it will greatly affect the grade po that will be averaged by the end of the summative assessment.
Well, we haven't considered that scenario, but I guess well, if I will if I will be the teacher, I will just ask what's the reason for it? What was the reason why it didn't push through? And I guess that would also be my basis to invalidate the score. So we will be discussing that. I guess we haven't discussed that scenario yet.
Okay po. Thank you po.
Yes, okay. Thank you po. This is a question po sa ating viewer from YouTube. Hello, ang fifth year po ngayon used to follow the old grading system, which is 5 is the field, 1 is the highest, right before the Borderfree Education po. Will their grading system now be following the new one, the 4 highest, or the old system pa din daw po?
For the fifth year students, they will be following the old grading system as per their student handbook policy.
Right.
Thank you so much po. Siguro po ito pa po, isa pa po. Um, why is there a lock date or due dates for the formative assessments, assignments, or laboratory activity when it is said that this school year is a self-paced learning daw po?
Um,
That's for me. Okay, so based on our discussion, there is only one lock date, and that is at the 18th week. So when I say prescribed end date, that's is simply a prompt for the student to actually be engaged into the summative assessment, more or less if you're doing on the normal coursework. But since we're doing self-paced or self-directed, that means to say you could do the summative assessment before the prescribed date of that summative assessment or later than that. But as long as you are doing all the summative assessments prior to the end date or the lock date, which is on the 18th week, therefore you could actually move around within the 18-week period to do all your summative assessments. So you can actually do the summative assessment, like for example, at the 10th week. So it depends on the phasing of that particular learner.
and siguro, if there are any concerns with practices contrary to what we have presented, I guess you can raise that to the SG, and SG can talk to us.
But then again, as mentioned by Dr. EA, if I recall, the summative assessment, the first summative assessment should actually been done supposedly at around the 7th week. But if there are actually no engagement of the student into the learning modules, then we'll have to prompt the guidance office to monitor the students and perhaps give feedback to the parents as well, because that's actually a red flag for us. Because if you're going to engage on the learning modules or on your Canvas account, that we say more or less we see that you are somewhat engaged in terms of the modules for the including the formative and the summative assessments along the way.
Okay, thank you very much po. Another question from our viewer po is, why do some requirements have a zero score when we are giving all our efforts into them? I mean, zero is not a bad number, but if you are doing your best and get a zero mark, isn't it too harsh?
Zero more. Um,
Zero score.
well, I guess this will somewhere be concern of any faculty with regards to his or her decision on grading the assessment. So, um, yes, there could possibly be faculty doing this, but yes, I guess it's harsh. But it's well, guys, you want to address
Okay.
this?
Zero score meaning to say if that is an objective type of
Yes.
score or assessment, perhaps yes, it is possible that you're going to get a zero score, because that means to say it's correct or not correct or incorrect answer. But if you're doing the authentic assessment, and that is in terms of a rubric, so therefore definitely if you have some output submitted or some sort of a material that was actually in compliance with the requirements set forth by the subject teacher, then I don't think you'll actually be given with a zero mark on that. Unless, of course, there's no material or no project that has been submitted. So yon. So again, the mark that we have basically is anchored on how the assessment was crafted. So if that is objective, yes, perhaps you're going to get a zero mark.
And thank you very much po. Another question po is somewhat related to the previous question. What if the students get a failing grades on their summative assessment? Is there any chance to get the additional grades on the formative assessment?
If we're going to really consider the system, the grades system generated, and I guess there's no way for the teacher to really add some more grades on that if we're going to follow the system. But yeah, it could. Well, the system says that it's system generated and it cannot be done.
Okay po. Okay po, another question with regards to our summative assessments. Is it required to take all the three attempts for the summative assessment, even if you have gained high score at the first attempt?
Okay, so again, the three attempts is actually not necessary as long as you actually pass the criteria set, then that's okay. So again, the attempt is simply for you to recover whatever score that you want to take or that you are actually peg or go to. But then again, if you actually feel that your first attempt is enough, then that is okay, as long as you pass or met the criteria set for the standards.
Thank
Referring
you.
to the formative assessment being given
Summative.
credit to the summative, again the grading system is system generated, and all formative assessments are not graded. Well, they are scored, but they do not count to the final grade. And I guess that is how the system is designed.
Mm, okay po. Are
I
there
guess,
any questions
partner,
about?
I think parang nasagot na ng ating mga speakers po ang ating mga questions from our viewers. Ikaw ba, partner, do you have any questions pa? Or any
Uh,
clarifications?
Siguro ano na lang po, for the last question na po siguro natin is that, what is the difference, between the border-free education, and the old facilitation of education before that we have right now po?
Okay, as I've mentioned before in the Border Free Education webinar that we've had last August 10, um, the home-based online learning that we had the latter part of the school year was simply a response or an emergency response to the scenario that we have. So basically, since we have the 2-1 before, so everything went online. That's it. To comply with the minimum requirements or competencies set for the remaining part of the school year. That's why, if you would also recall, there was actually a curtail of in terms of the requirements that we have set, and of course there were some periodic exams that were not already also given. So basically, just to make do with the remaining competencies and we get everything on board on that, that is what we call the home-based online learning. Now, seeing the learnings that we have for the home-based online learning, that now became our what you call this, our inspiration to pivot, so that for this coming school year we now know what are actually the concerns in terms of the connection at home. So that's the first major concern that we've had during our home-based learning. And of course, not all students can actually can actually meet together in a class. That's why we decided that we have the synchronous and the asynchronous sessions as well. So those learnings that we've had from the previous home-based online learning are basically our springboard to crafting or revisiting our policies for the border-free education. And it means a lot to us because we have experienced what those are. And from here, learning from the lessons that we have from those, from the practices that we've set before. So we are now mindful of what or how many hours are we going to compel our students in terms of their engagement online, and of course in terms of the requirements as well, because again, submissions, when we set a date for submissions, it does not before, students are quite stressed and anxious on how to actually comply with the requirements set on a met or a given deadline. But since we're doing now self-paced, self-directed, so therefore you just have to pace your engagement with the Canvas account, with the learning modules, with the subject matter at your own pace, so that you'll be able to be engaged more on your own. And you are going to set the deadlines, again, meeting, of course, the minimum set prescribed criteria for each of the summative assessments for you to be able to pass the course.
I
I
agree. I
have
agree. And also, going back to the first question of Carl earlier, which is the 60 base, we did shift from 50 to 60. Well, it's just to accommodate students with more challenges. And I guess that's the reason why there's a shift from 50 to 60. And also, the difference between the traditional classroom we had before, it was the normal before, but we are now facing the new normal. And what we're having now is not yet the normal, but it's the start of the new normal.
Yeah.
So we will be expecting more changes, as long as we keep on adapting, as long as we keep recognizing that there are changes and we keep on adapting. I guess that's the direction to the new normal. And that's the difference between, and the past, ika nga, kung pag sa love life, may past is past. The other situation that is already past is already a past. Thank you.
I also would like to add to that,
Right.
Dr. Ian and Dr. ISL. We have our government regulatory agencies who actually regulate schools, educational institutions in the Philippines. So they have not issued any memo regarding border-free education if we're allowed. So yun ang reference natin. So we're still waiting for that. So that might change the trend in education just in case they'll be issuing specific memos regarding online classes.
Ayan po,
Okay,
thank you
yeah,
very
that's all.
much
Thank you.
po. I think this will be our last question po for this morning po. Ano po, the last question is a clarification regarding the formative assessment. Ang kukuhaning record po ba ay yung highest score or the average of all attempts po? As for the summative, same din po yung question.
For the formative, you need to at least get 70 for you to open the succeeding learning materials, or 70% or higher for the summative assessment. But in terms of recording the grades, I think it's the highest. Tama ba, Doc
Right.
Isa?
For the formative
Right?
assessment.
For the formative assessment, it's the highest. But for the summative assessment, it will be the average of the three attempts if the student did take the three attempts. But if the student just took one attempt, yun lang ang grade.
But then again, to clarify, the formative assessment is not part of the
Yes.
grade computation. So therefore, the qualifier for the highest score is basically a prompt for you that you have passed the minimum set criteria, and that the 60% for the 70% for the formative assessment is simply actually a gauge for you so that you'll be able to open the next set of modules, so that that means to say that's a prompt that you are ready to take the next set of challenges.
Okay. Thank you very much po.
And I think, partner and dear speakers, that is the end of our question and answer portion. And thank you very much to all the speakers who joined us to this orientation for enlightening and informing all the Lasallians out there.
I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the student government for organizing this orientation and for making this possible for our co-students.
So to formally close the program, here is the closing prayer from the Student Government's Executive Vice President, Ms. Lourdes Genevieve Solis.
Of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Spirit. Almighty God, we came to you to give all the honor that you deserve. Thank you for all the blessings that you showered upon us despite the pandemic that we are all experiencing nowadays. On the other hand, we are grateful for what has been accomplished today as we come to the end of this orientation. May the matters discussed serve as a catalyst to move us forward and cause us to advance and see the growth in all areas of our lives as we enter this new academic year. May you guide and help us to achieve our goals and objectives successfully, not just for ourselves, but also for all the students, parents, professors, as well as the institution. Let us pray the Lasallian prayer. I will continue, O my God, to do all my actions for the love of you. Saint John Baptist de La Salle, pray for us. Leave Jesus in our hearts forever. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Let us raise our right hand as we sing our alma mater hymn.
Hail to De La Salle! We'll hold your banner high and bright, a shield of green and white. We'll fight to keep your glory bright, and never shall we fail. green and white. We'll fight to keep your glory bright, and never shall we fail. Hail to thee, our alma mater. Hail, hail, hail. Hail to thee, our alma mater. Hail, hail, hail.
And this is where the Border-Free Education orientation for college students finally ends. I am Dale Fernan Castillo,
And I am Ilyana Kagimbal.
now
Now,
signing
signing
off.
off.